Mhm. Hello, everyone. Hello. Oh my goodness. So I just spent the last 50 minutes talking to myself. So I apologize for that. I apologize for that. I spent 50 minutes talking to myself. Unbelievable. And now everybody knows what a doofus I am. But how's everyone going? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Benjamin Ford and First Last, who have been waiting for like an hour. Holy shit. I probably shouldn't have admitted that. Normally I have like um, the intro music. Oh well. And the thing is, I wanted to start early. I wanted to start early because the kids are still asleep. It was like 9 a.m. and uh, well, one of the kids is still asleep. The other one is doing homeschooling. Yeah. You guys, Julia, I didn't even think of it. Usually, it takes me a couple of people prodding me before I get what's going on. I was wondering, hey, why aren't there any chat? There's like 6 people. I'm talking about RTX 4090. I figured that would be something you guys would be interested in. Uh, but yeah, uh, I guess this is what it is. I need to take a break now because I just spent 50 minutes talking. Hello, everyone. Hello, Fatemeh, Jimbos. I don't know if you're still around. Hello, Julia. Hello, Nightmare Darks. Nightmare Wolf Darks. Hello, Confirmed SK. We can have a chat about this in Discord, how dumb I am. Yeah. Yeah, this is embarrassing, but that's okay. Uh, Embarrassing stuff can be funny sometimes. But now I kind of wasted an hour, and the kids are probably going to rock up soon. So yeah, it's going to be annoying. So let's get straight into it. Now, let me go over what I'm going to talk about. And we're coming up to 10 o'clock anyway, so people might start joining in at 10 o'clock, which is good. So now today's show, what we're going to be doing is I want to go over the LPDDR4 4x memory bandwidth issue that I had. So I made a video about LPDDR5, and in that video, I talked about how with the Ryzen 4800U laptops, I wasn't sure what the memory bandwidth was going to be on those laptops, whether it was running in the full memory bandwidth or half memory bandwidth. And I stated that in my video. Well, I just wanted to clarify some of those points in that video. Um, and I think the video is still fine. There isn't any issue with it because I was raising a question of what's going on with these laptops, and therefore I didn't do any analysis on them. So I think the video was fine, or 95% fine. If somebody has problems with it, they can just hit that dislike button. And if enough people do that, then people won't see the video anyway. And I think that will be fine. But anyway, I wanted to, I guess, clarify that situation a little bit more based on what I found yesterday. Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about is RTX 4090 and the RX 6900 XT, RX 7900 XT. And if you guys have any questions on that, put it in the chat. I was waiting for some questions about the 4090 7900 XT. I don't know if you guys are that excited about it or whether you are excited about it, because for me, I do rumors and leaks and videos like that, and I personally, like, I want to steer my channel into the more in the direction of um doing these, I guess, rumors and leaks a little bit later, rather than doing them early. I found that if I put up a video when it's super early, there are things that could be wrong about it. So for example, like the 3080 Ti, I made a video about that in January, and it only just released like about a month ago. So in January, I said it might have 20 gigabytes of video RAM or VRAM, and that it was going to be $1,000. And we know how that turned out. So there really isn't that much point in doing them super early anyway. And I want my channel to be more about, well, if you're looking for something or searching for something, and you want to plan out a PC, for example, I hope my videos will help you in some way like that. So I'd rather do them 3 or 4 months beforehand, when people are starting to think about what kind of PCs that they want to build. And then, if they like, for example, last year, if I made a video in, say, June or July for Ampere, that would make more sense, because at that point you're probably thinking about, well, should I get a 3080 or a 3070? I can start planning my build about what I want to buy. I can start planning for my motherboards and CPUs and that sort of thing. That's kind of the direction where I want to go with this channel, rather than having stuff that is super early, and then that way I'm end up making a lot of videos or spending a lot of time on stuff that may not eventuate anyways. Uh, that's kind of my philosophy on what I want to do with this channel anyway. I think I have a lot of things to talk about, so I'm not going to run out of content. Okay, so let's go to quick. Oh, actually, let me just finish with the summary of what we're going to do today in this live stream. There's so much to talk about, so I don't think I'm going to run out of stuff. And now that I've had like 50 minutes to go over stuff, I think I'll be fine. I did say before I'm going to wing it, because I really only decided to do this stream last night. And yeah, I didn't have that much prepared except for Steam Deck stuff, which I already know anyway. So we'll touch on the RTX 3090 bricking. I don't know that much about it, so I guess I can give some comments, but not really. I think for something like the RTX 3090 bricking, that's probably more a situation where you want to go to somebody like actually hardcore overclocking. Buildzoid seems to know what he's talking about when it comes to power and PCBs and that sort of thing. I think that would make sense to go watch his video on it. Now, I watched his video a little bit. I was driving in the car, so I wasn't really paying that much attention to the video itself. But yeah, I would suggest that you go and watch his video. Okay, we have an article about GPU prices steadying, so that will be another quick one, because I just wanted to give some thoughts about what's going on with GPU prices at the moment. Now, then we have a section with Steam Deck. You can ask me anything on the Steam Deck in that section, and I will probably leave most of the Steam Deck talk until then. It'll probably be an hour out, given how I've gone with timing in the past. So it's probably an hour to go till Steam Deck stuff. So if you want to, if you're just only interested in Steam Deck, I would come back in an hour. And then I do have one in the title. I put Animal Crossing. So if we have time, if people are bored, I might just ramble on about Animal Crossing, which is what I've been playing in the last month with the kids. And I will put a break or something beforehand. So like, if you don't want to listen to that stuff, I'll just put Animal Crossing at the end. I may or may not do, depending on time. I probably won't do it now because I'm late already. But what's the time now? It's 10 o'clock exactly. All right. So yeah, so I know you guys will probably have comments about the RTX 3090. And I guess confirmed desk. I might just answer this now, because in an hour I probably won't see it again. New World menu would run thousands of FPS, and that's what was bricking the RTX 3090. Yeah, so it can happen, like you unlock the frame rate, and then your clock cycles just keep increasing, which means you need a lot of power. So it's throwing as much power as it can, and then it just keeps on going, right? Like the frame rate just keeps on going and keeps asking for more power. That could be what's going on there. But that's really all I know about what's going on with RTX 3090 bricking. But we'll go through the article and see if there's any more information there. Okay, let's go with LPDDR4 first. Now, I made a video yesterday or a couple of days ago on LPDDR5 performance, and let me just click into it. So there was this section about why I didn't compare Ryzen 4000U LPDDR4X LPDDR4. I really should get a YouTube membership. Okay. Let me just jump straight into this bit here. So I talked about why I didn't compare Ryzen 4000U laptops in this video. And at the time I was thinking, hey, there's a lot of these laptops and they all say they're dual channel. But if I look at this AMD slide here, it says LPDDR4X. And it says that to use LPDDR4X, you want to use it in quad channel. Each controller can support, so 2 memory controllers, each controller can support one 64-bit channel for DDR4 or two 32-bit channels for LPDDR4X. So if you use all of them, it's quad channel. So I want to clarify this because even in the video, I wasn't exactly sure what was going on because at the time I said, hey, look, if this report says that it's in dual channel, does that mean it's in 34.1 gigabytes per second? And we know that the full memory bandwidth would be 68.2 gigabytes per second. And really, you know, the only criticism I have would be like I should have put a question mark there rather than a full stop as a statement. So I was a bit confused about what was going on, so I decided not to actually analyze the 4800Us or any of the Ryzen laptops, which there wasn't really that much information on graphics performance anyways. Like even this TechSpot review, had maybe 4 or 5 titles only, and it had things like GTA 5, Civilization 6, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive. So not really that many good games to really get performance numbers off. Super old games that I guess you can tell like what the difference is between, say, the Vega 8 in the 4800U or the Vega 7 in the 4700U. But yeah, just going off a few numbers to do some analysis wasn't going to be that great anyway. But anyway, my problem was that I wasn't sure whether this was half bandwidth or full bandwidth. Now, I did find some more information about this. Let me go back to this. I need to duplicate this. Okay. No, I need this Reddit post. Okay. So I was a little bit confused, like whether it was running half the bandwidth or full bandwidth, because it didn't seem likely to me, hey, that all of these manufacturers would just be making these laptops with just half the memory bandwidth, especially when it's onboard RAM anyways. They wouldn't really be saving any money with that. So there's this post here. Is there any AMD laptop running quad-channel LPDDR4X? I know Renoir and Cezanne support quad-channel LPDDR4X up to 4266 MHz, but I just cannot find a single laptop that actually has it. So the top comment here is all of them use it basically. If it's reported as dual channel in software and has LPDDR4X, then it has 128-bit memory, aka quad channel for LPDDR4X. 2 of each 32-bit LPDDR4X channels are connected to one of the 64-bit CPU channels. That's why it's reported as dual channel in software. The topic is ultra confusing for many people, and I may get downvoted, but that's how it works. So he seems to know what he's talking about. And so now, of course, this isn't like 100% confirmation, but there were people, or there was one comment down below here where Bramagon said that he had a Lenovo Yoga Slim 7, and he says that it was running in dual channel. So I just didn't want to worry people that had a Ryzen 4800U that their system was running in half memory bandwidth. That's my only concern here, is that I made this video and now some people are concerned that it's running half memory bandwidth. So I wrote back, I said that it's probably unlikely that it's running at half memory bandwidth. It looks like it's been reported as dual channel in the software, but in actual reality, the hardware actually is quad channel. That probably makes the most sense to me because I just don't see how all of these laptop manufacturers can make this would make this into half memory bandwidth, which is effectively like single channel DDR4. So that would be really dumb, and they would be shooting themselves in the foot needlessly. All of them, like this would be happening on all of these laptops, because I couldn't find a single laptop that was in quad channel anyway. So while I'm not 100% confirmed that it is running in quad channel, I would say that 95% it's 95% likely that this is most likely running in quad channel, and that there really isn't anything to worry about if you have a Ryzen 4000 laptop. I showed off this AnandTech forum post. It says here, keep in mind that Renoir IGP results with LPDDR4X will be all over the place. It needs to be full quad channel in order to have 128-bit memory bus. It is highly likely you'll have the exact same model with very different performance with 8GB, 12GB, and 16GB, and across all OEMs with no way to be sure. That's the thing, like, we don't really know, like, even in the tech specs, it's not very clear about any of this. And really, the only way that they were going to tell was the one on the leaked review seems to be a 16GB quad channel LPDDR4X 4266 due to the high performance. So they're saying that, yeah, it's looking like, because it's in line with, say, some of the other results, that it's most likely that it's going to be quad channel, but it's hard to know for sure. Like if you drop it to, say, dual channel, or like single channel DDR4, for example, you'll get quite a noticeable decrease in performance, at least about 20 or 30%, if you just drop the memory bandwidth by half. Because the other thing is that you're already struggling with memory bandwidth, and now you're really, really struggling with the memory bandwidth on these low bandwidth type of GPUs. And that's really all I wanted to say. I just wanted to clarify that video. And I'll probably leave it there because I think most people want to get into like RTX 4090 stuff. But yeah, if you watch that video, you don't really have anything too terribly concerned about if you have a Ryzen laptop. So yeah, I will probably link to that. I'll probably leave a link to the live stream in this video down here in the comments below. And then people can just visit my comments on the video here. Okay, let's talk about RTX 4090. Let me get a drink first, because I've been talking for a while now. How do I get to 4090 stuff? Okay. I wanted to go to this. Okay, RTX 4090. Okay, let me get to some of the chat here so I don't ignore all the chats. Okay, so Nightmare Wolf asks, what do you think the price will be? I'm really hyped. What do you think the release date is? Well, the release date is pretty similar answer. It will just be next year, 2022. Nvidia runs on a 2-year cycle with most of these things, and I don't see any reason why they would change it at this rate. If this is indeed a card that is actually most likely for gamers, because like the 3090, the 2080 Ti, a card gate for gamers just releases every 2 years. Whereas the Titan Pascal is kind of a little bit more random when it comes out. So we've seen the Titan Pascal release. Sorry, why am I saying Titan Pascal? The Titan release, say like 3 months after these cards, for example. But that card, even though it has a little bit more compute power, it's still like, it's not really that much more than, say, a 3090, for example. It might be 5% better. But people will buy it anyway because they want the fastest card. In terms of the release date, if it's a gaming card, yeah, it'll be next year, 2022, end of 2022. So it works on a 2-year cycle. So it'll be like, September sometime, 2022. And in terms of price, I guess the price, it'll. I mean, it's really hard to say because so the 2080 Ti was $1299. I think it was $1299 or $1199. And then the RTX 3090 was $1499. So I think they're just going to keep increasing the price. I don't know if they will go to $1,999. They may do because they just saw that everybody was buying these cards at $3,000 anyway. So I'm just gonna, yeah, I guess I will say $1,999, depending on like what the price is of the 3090 at the time. So yeah, I think the price, the thing is about the price is that the street price is going to be different unless the street supply is really good. So the street price is just going to be different anyway. So it doesn't really matter too much what the MSRP is. Like even with the RX 6900 XT, it was supposed to be $999, and I think it's still going for about $2,000 on the street. So it all depends on the supply. And the thing is with supply, in the past, you had excess supply, which would be, and then to, I guess, reduce the supply, that would reduce the price of these cards. So you did get cards sometimes that were lower than the MSRP. And that was how you got rid of the stock. However, now the way that they get rid of the stock is just to offer it to miners, and that keeps the price on the street high. So that's what's going on right now, is like, why aren't we seeing all of these price decreases now? Because the miners just continue to buy the best cards anyways, even though they might be getting like rid of all their 1060s or 2060s. Actually, the funny thing is, we were supposed to get all of these cards. There were videos of people saying, "Oh, look, the China miners are going to get rid of all their cards, and there's going to be a flood of these eBay cards on eBay." I don't know. Have we seen that yet? Because I feel like we haven't. There were some initial videos made of that, but then we really didn't get a follow-up or anything like that. I don't really see that there are tons and tons of these secondhand cards available on the market. So, and the other thing is, yeah, I think the miners will just keep buying the excess stock, which keeps the price on the market high. So what's happening is like the miners are kind of sidestepping everybody by getting in on the prices first, or getting in on the stock first. They're going straight to the factory to buy these cards, or going straight to the distributor to buy these cards. And then they're able to offer a price where the manufacturer or the distributor will just go, "Hey, yeah, I'm just going to sell all of these cards to this guy. It's easier for me, and then I will get a quick buck in return, rather than having to sell them one at a time, or selling them to the retailers below." So the distributors are almost playing the two sides off one another. So if they don't like the price from the miners, they go to the retailers to keep the price high. And if the price starts to fall on retail, then they will go back to the miners and go, "Hey, we've got a ton of these cards, you want them," which keeps supply low in terms of retail, and then that keeps the price high. So it's a balancing act, and honestly, it's not that difficult to do, because there really aren't that many distributors. There really aren't that many manufacturers. There's maybe like 15 at the most AIB partners, and they'll just put out the cards as they need to. Even the manufacturers themselves probably are thinking about, what to release, so that they continue to keep the price high, because the price high means more revenue. So they're I guess playing with the prices as much as they can, and with of course their main goal is really to make as much revenue as possible. So it's a careful balancing act. So they want to make as many cars as they can at the factory and sell them for as high of a price as they can. I probably went on way too long there. So let me get into this Ada Lovelace article. Sorry about that, but that was one of the questions there in the chat. Let's go to RTX 4090, and the article says Nvidia Ada Lovelace launching next year using TSMC 5 nanometer, which is surprising because I thought Nvidia would probably stick with Samsung because they were at Samsung 8 nanometer, which 8 nanometer is very similar to their 10 nanometer process. So there was still good gains for them if they stuck with Samsung 7 nanometer. So if you look at this tweet, they say that it's 100% confirmed on TSMC, which is really surprising. Now, I don't really know too much about Greymon55, but he's been followed by a lot of people now, and he doesn't have that many tweets, but a lot of reputable leakers and rumors, people are following him. So I think he's pretty legit. Well, in terms of people following him, making someone legit. But yeah, he got a lot of people following it. Like Cupeye7Kimmy, I think, follows him. Okay, so Greymon55 says that Ada Lovelace is definitely the next generation gaming card, as the entire project plan has been finalized and will not change. That was July 24th, 2021. And I think that's pretty much, not going to disagree there, because it's July 24th. It's about 1 year before the cards are released. So they had to lock stuff down. They had to lock their manufacturing process down. They had to get their business deal done in place, the contracts and all of that sort of thing, how many they're going to make, how many units they're going to make with TSMC. And this sort of stuff probably happens about a year out, that the design is locked. Then they will start to do a tape out, do some sampling. Maybe they'll get some samples back, and then they might adjust some clocks and things like that on the processor. But really, their actual design of the GPU, or what they want to put in the GPU, is pretty much done. Like, and all the, I guess what do you call those things? The processors and things like that inside. So all of that is pretty much fixed. Now, Greymon55 says that Ada TSMC 5 nanometer 100%. But I'm not sure if it's N5 or N5P yet. Now, I don't know too much about N5P or N5, but I guess it's just the further step in the process. So, or the next version of it. So as Samsung has like 10 nanometer and then 8 nanometer, or then 8 nanometer EUV, that sort of thing. So it's like version 1, version 2, version 3. So it will be an improvement of that. But in terms of TSMC 5 nanometer, yeah, I was really surprised because when we look at the transistor density, now I'm just going to be rambling here, so nothing too scientific, but if you look at the RTX 3090, this has 28.300 million, so 28.3 billion transistors. I did the calc before anyway. Like that, divided by 628, gives you about 45 million transistors per millimeter squared. If we go back to the transistor density chart, so this is on 8 nanometer. So 45 million is probably somewhere around here, which is fine. There might be some dead space or whatever in the GPU. So it's not quite at that 10 nanometer or even that 8 nanometer, which is 61. But yeah, 45 would be somewhere around here. So yeah, of course they're not making full use of that space, but that's what it is. Like and also, on this die, there's probably, wiring and things like that. So it's not going to be completely like that density is like the maximum theoretical density. Nightmare Wolf says, I think it's going to be 7800, but I'll try and get whatever I can for 4080 or 4090. Yeah, maybe the 4080 you could get for 1700, given the current market prices at the moment. Steven, how you going? I'm good, thank you. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. I hope these governments can stop squabbling like babies so we can stop paying effing tariffs. Only the customer is getting screwed. Yeah, I'm not sure what the situation is there. Is like so does that mean like all your cars are basically like 25% more? Because if your cars are 25% more, then it's also affecting our cars as well, because I feel like the US market rate is similar to the market rate or what we're paying for the cards here. I don't know. Is it? It just seems like the say like a 3060 is $750. Then it's also $750 in the US as well. But look, going back to this transistor density, so if they went to Samsung 7 nanometer, and because they were at 45 million transistors per unit, 45 million transistors, that would be a big step up for them to jump up to Samsung 7 nanometer. So I didn't really see a reason why they would want to leave Samsung to go to TSMC. Now, it's just my speculation, or I'm just kind of rambling here, so I don't really have information about it. I just assumed that Nvidia would stick with Samsung, to be honest, because they moved away from TSMC and now they've developed a business relationship with Samsung. Surely, if they had record profits this year, it would be easy for them to just stick with Samsung. And I don't know how these contracts and things works, whether, it's easy for you to just jump from one manufacturing process to another. Like, is it something like you build a mobile phone, you just go to one factory, if you don't like it, you go to another factory to get it built? It could be like that. But I figured with these very high level or high technological level things, that they'd probably be secrets and business things that you want to keep close. And so you probably tend to work with one partner long term. That people were making a lot of fuss about, like Intel going to TSMC, for example. So, and because Intel has always done their own manufacturing, that they would start to reveal some things about their design to other people as well. So I guess that was another reason. I thought maybe that Nvidia, you wouldn't want to be changing manufacturing partners all the time. But yeah, my assumption previously, back with my Lovelace video, was that 7 nanometer would be a pretty big jump up. And in terms of the performance improvement you might get from jumping like this, we've seen in the past, like you would get like 30-40% performance improvement with a doubling of the transistor density. You can go back and check all of the other, like, say, for example, Maxwell on 28 nanometer jumping up to Pascal at 14 nanometer. You get like 50% performance improvement. So if they just stuck with 7 nanometer, that would be a pretty good gain. Now, they say that TSMC 5 nanometer. So let me go to this. This chart here. So where are we? We are at this. So the Samsung 7 nanometer is 95, which was what was on the previous chart. And if they went to TSMC estimate, which is this orange square here with the white square inside, that would be TSMC 5 nanometer. That'd be 171.3 million transistors per millimeter square. So that would almost be a 4x in terms of amount of transistors that they would get, or say like 3x if you're doing the theoretical maximums. So with the 3x, you might be thinking of getting like, say, 100% performance improvements due to the node shrink, which is likely, I guess. So going to TSMC 5 nanometer really tells me that maybe they're a little bit concerned with AMD and trying to keep up with them as well. That would be the reason to go with them. But at the same time, we've seen how volume works out with Ampere. Like, it didn't really matter that much whether the RTX 3090 was better or the RX 6900 XT was better in terms of rasterization speed. As long as it was close, if it's like 10-20% close enough, I don't think people really mind that much at the top end. Because now there are different features and stuff. Like Nvidia has RTX, for example, or the RX 6900 XT has more more VRAM than, say, like an RTX 30. So there's lots of different reasons why you may want to choose one card over another. So maybe people felt like, hey, I don't want to get a 3080 because then I've got 10 gigabytes of RAM. I will get the RX 6800 XT or the RX 6900 XT. It has 16 gigabytes of video memory. So they make it now that there's so many different reasons to choose. And if the rasterization performance is close anyway, I don't think it matters that much. So unless Samsung 7 nanometer falls way behind in terms of rasterization performance, and it could very well do, like if TSMC 5 nanometer is available and AMD use it and Nvidia is back on 95, then it's very easy to get those gains. And so maybe there's a situation where the AMD second card, say like the 6700 XT, almost beats the Nvidia top card. So maybe that's kind of forcing their hand a little bit. And the other thing that I haven't ruled out, of course, is it possible that Nvidia's top card goes to TSMC and then the other cards stay with Samsung because they also need volume as well. And normally that isn't done because the manufacturing process is tied to the design of the GPU. So normally the entire deck of GPUs, right down to the end, they're all done by one manufacturer. So they will just cut different versions of it. So you see with the 3090 is the GA102, and then you'll have GA104 and then GA106. They all have different die sizes, but they're all more or less the same sort of design, and then it's all done by one manufacturer. So it could be like, hey, there's a Titan here, and the Titan goes to TSMC 5 nanometer, and the other ones stick with Samsung for volume. So that probably won't happen, but I haven't ruled that out completely. But let's go back to the article. So Copy7 Kimmy says Hopper GH202 to the rescue if AD102 is not fast enough. I won't read the article, but I'll read his tweet, and it says here, Copy7 Kimmy says 5 nanometer no matter TSMC or Samsung, AD102 in transition or GH202 in revolution. Okay, so I guess that's really interesting because it says that Hopper, which is the high performance computing or data center GPU, that's not normally a gaming product. So I'd be really surprised if that eventuated. Like they took the GH202 die and made it into a gaming. So I don't think that's going to happen. But Copy7 Kimmy, he's got his ear to the ground more than I do. So it's possible maybe they turn that into some sort of like Titan, just to beat AMD, for example. RDNA 3 GFX 11. How does AMD reach its performance goal? Double the SIMD in compute units. Well, we're going to get to that in a second. How about Intel? Now, this was May 22. So this is a while ago, and I think the Greymon tweet kind of supersedes that from Copy7 Kimmy. So even like back in May, Copy7 Kimmy knew that this was going to be 5 nanometer. But yeah, in terms of the GH202, I'd be surprised that they would pull that out. That would be a last resort if the Ada Lovelace wasn't fast enough. And the thing is, like, to be completely honest, how many people really care about who wins the performance crown at the top? In terms of like general mainstream consumers, like in terms of the people who are actually just watching Nvidia show, I think Nvidia got maybe like 1 million people watching their live stream for their Ampere reveal. How many of those people care about the top card? Besides like just, in debating like which card is better, how many of those 1 million people ended up buying an RTX 3090? So as long as people get like a 3070 or a 3080, that's fast enough or that's an improvement on their previous hardware, I think people are going to be happy about it. Okay. So there's some comments here by Moore's Law is dead. And it's more his comments on the situation rather than actual information, because he says things like, well, RDNA 3 is going to have to deal with Lovelace. Well, yes, it is. And also, Nvidia is preparing to outship Radeon in next year into oblivion. Well, yeah. I mean, we saw that with Ampere as well. So this is something that's already happening right now. But yeah, that's Moore's law is dead stuff. Nvidia Ada Lovelace by end of 2022. So I think most people are going to agree that there's going to be a 2-year cycle with these type of things. So that's nothing new. We'll probably see Ada Lovelace by August, September next year, which is the same time as Ampere and Turing. So yeah, this is pretty obvious. Now I want to show you guys another tweet. Okay, so this is a tweet from 3dcenter.org, which is a good summary of the current rumors that are out there for RTX 4090 and the RX 7900 XT or the Navi 31. So I don't know if you guys can read that, but I'll read it for you. I don't know how to make this bigger. Like if I made this, it still stays the same size. Okay, so Navi 31, MCM, which is the multi-chip module, I believe, with 2 times GCD. GCD is like a global core die. So effectively what they're saying is like they're going to have two GPU cores on this. And these are going to be TSMC 5 nanometer. And there's going to be 1 memory core die. And it's almost as if they're saying, hey, we need more of this infinity cache because it worked well for us in the past. Now we're just going to put an entire die of it on. And you may recall the die for the RX 6900 XT. There was a lot of infinity cache on that. You know, when they highlighted that infinity cache on their die. Now they want to have an entire die of it. So, yeah, obviously they like the way that cache is working in gaming. Having an extra one and to speed things up versus rather than having more memory that they have to buy or higher spec memory. Now this is really surprising. So this is 15,360 floating point 32 units. Now if you recall, the RX 6900 XT had 5,120 cores. So this is 3 times the amount of cores. This card is going to be 3x the 6900 XT, which is truly insane. The thing is, like, this is nothing really that new. They've done similar things in the past, although this time I will say that they're kind of taking what they learned from the Ryzen CPUs, where they have 2 core complexes. So that's how they get their 16 cores, 32 thread 5950Xs. So they'll have 2 of those. They join them together with Infinity Fabric. I believe this is probably, you know, how they're going to play it with this type of thing. But they have done it with graphics cards in the past, although it's a little bit different because I was looking at this before. This is the R9 295 X2. When did this come out? This came out like 2014. So it was a while ago. But if you look at this card itself, there's 2 dies here. So if you look at this card, there's 2 dies with 2 sets of memory. Now in the past, this is almost like as if you were running, like, say, it in SLI or Crossfire, but it's joined onto the same board and then it has the 1 power delivery system. Yeah, this is pretty ludicrous. And I would expect, okay, so with the 7900 XT, you'll just get the 1 die and the 1 set of memory. So it won't be like this, but they have joined kind of like two GPUs together in the past, which is similar to what's going on here. Now, this was way better performance than everything else at the time, but it was kind of, I wouldn't say cheating a little bit, but like it is technically 2 cards. And then if you look at, say, the power consumption of this car, which is pretty insane, to power all of that, they needed, okay, just in typical average, it was 430 watts. And the peak power was 500 watts. The card power consumption was 650 watts. So it's almost as if you had like two 3090s. So is this kind of like what we're going to be seeing with this massive die? Where is it? With this massive die with 15,360 floating 0.32 units. Yes, it does have a node shrink, but this thing could be like 400 watts, for example, normally, because we're already at 300 watts. So what's another 100 watts added to this? Plus, it's got two GPUs on there. So it could very well be that you're getting something similar to that 295 X2 situation where the manufacturer suddenly, or AMD suddenly go, okay, we really need to beat Nvidia next time. How can we do that? Well, we can make this ridiculous GPU with two GPU dies inside, even though, you know, it just looks like it's one GPU. But yeah, it has 3 times the amount of floating point 32 units. Now, I will say that this doesn't really seem that balanced to me because it has a 256-bit GDDR6, which, I mean, if you look at the RX 6900 XT, this was already falling behind a little bit the RTX 3080 and 3090 in terms of 4K. So to go 256-bit again is rather surprising, given you now have 3 times the amount of compute units. I literally talked about this 2 days ago with the Steam Deck, how that had a lot of memory bandwidth for the compute units that I was running, and now this suddenly doesn't have as much memory bandwidth as, say, previous generation. So maybe that, yeah, I think 256-bit is surprising for this card. And some of these rumors might not actually be finalized. Like maybe they don't know about this 256-bit or how the memory system runs. But yeah, I raise my eyebrow at this. Now, with the RTX 4090, and the thing is, like with some of these leaks, and this is to your question where Confirmed SK says there's so many insane leaks for next gen. We don't even know like how these rumors came about. It could be like somebody's got one piece of information and then kind of worked out the other parts to that information as well. So, for example, someone might get information, hey, look, it's going to be 2 dies on Navi 31. And then someone's decide, oh, well, if you go to 5 nanometer, well, this is the number of FP32 units that you're going to get. So some of this stuff, when they say it's rumored and all of this, it could be worked out from like one piece of information, which is another reason why I don't want to report on all of this stuff early, but I don't mind to do it in a live stream and talk to you guys about it. Because, yeah, I find that, yeah, making a video on this and then having a search later, about a year after, mostly means that this information isn't going to be very accurate anymore. Okay, so with Nvidia, Ada Lovelace, it says here it's monolithic on TSMC 5 nanometer. So that's really surprising because that means that single die, well, is it going to be competing with this Navi 31? Surely it really can't. Like, sure, it says 18,432 floating point 32 units, but obviously that might not be the same thing with the AMD units because this one will be 3 times 6900 XT and this is 2 times the RTX 3090. So it's not the same thing. It's not the same number of or the same size of compute units. Okay, but anyway, 18,432 floating point 32 units. Now that's about 2x of the 3090. So if you look here, this has 10,496 cores. This has 18,432 cores. So, you know, personally, I thought they could have built this on Samsung 7 nanometer. So you get a die shrink, maybe you probably have about the same Maybe the die size would be a bit bigger, which is why it's probably going to TSMC 5 nanometer. But if it's going to TSMC 5 nanometer, then maybe your die size is even smaller now because you're getting a 3x die shrink. You're getting a 3x die shrink, and then you're only increasing your compute units by 2x. So you see like why TSMC 5 nanometer, you could even make a bigger die than this. But anyway, there's probably a lot of other things on that GPU die that we don't really know about. And just because they can make it bigger doesn't mean that they have to make it bigger, because then it might not actually work. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say was the 384-bit GDDR6X. That seems about right? Like, because the RTX 3080, that has 760 gigabytes per second. The 3090 had 1 terabyte per second, or 960 gigabytes per second, and there was a bit of an improvement for 3090, but not that much. So if they have a 384-bit GDDR6X, I think 960 gigabytes per second is more than enough for like 4K anyway. At least what we've seen from all of the Ampere stuff, because with the RX 6900 XT, that had 256-bit and with Infinity Cache as well, and that was okay. And I think if you even tried to play RTX 3070 with the 256-bit bus on there, you're mostly okay for most of the games. So I think 384-bit makes sense for this, plus 6X as well. Now, I've heard some reports that it could even be like 24 gigabits per second. That would be surprising because, yeah, I mean, they could do it, but it's going to be very hot, because I've already tried to run mine at like 19.5 gigabits per second on the 3090, and it goes like to 95 degrees. So maybe it's like another version of 6X. So they'd have to improve on it somehow to make it go like 24 gigabits per second. But do you guys have any questions on the RTX 4090 and RX 7900 XT? Nvidia may be going to 7np. A lot of companies are leaving it. The Samsung 8 nanometer has problems yielding last chips as far as I know. So Steven kind of also agrees with me that there would still be a good enough jump to 7 nanometer then. Yeah, so Samsung 8 nanometer has problems yielding large chips, as far as I know. Well, it's tricky. Yeah, I think it could go either way, because they made record profits. So maybe they made a lot of these cards, or made more than previous generation anyway, so they're still happy with that. But at the same time, we don't really know what the yields are. So a lot of it is just kind of like rumors and hearsay. If the large die was really bad, they could probably turn it into other chips. Say like, the 3080 should have been the 3070 Ti, but they decided to use the top die of the GA104 for the 3070 Ti, which was really surprising because they didn't really get that many units of it. Or I should say, it didn't have that many number of extra cores on it to make much of a difference in terms of performance. The only performance we really got was on that memory bandwidth, where it increased it by like to 600 gigabytes per second from 448 gigabytes per second. So this one, the Samsung 8 nanometer has problems yielding large chips. Yeah, it could be. I don't really know for sure. I've heard rumors like that, but at the same time, in terms of the actual products that have come out, if it was doing really bad, I would have expected, say, like another product under 3080, say like a 3070 Ti, where they could disable more units on that, disable more cores, and then to sell those chips that way. Okay, thank you so much, Xavier Guzman, for the 99 cents super chat. I hope you're enjoying the show, and hope you're enjoying the chat. Write a question. next time with your super chat as well, so I can answer it, or even write a comment, whatever you want. Confirmed SK. There's so many insane leaks for next gen from Nvidia and AMD, and I'm having a bad time pronouncing stuff because I've been talking for 2 hours. And that's because I did 15 minutes without actually pressing the go live button. But yeah, I don't think I need to remind everybody here. Okay. Xavier Guzman, I want the AMD stock to keep going up so I have money to buy the next graphics card instead of taking out a second mortgage on my home. Don't take out that second mortgage on your home. It's really not worth it. Pay off that mortgage on your home first. And then with those savings from your mortgage, you can go and buy your graphics card. But yeah, don't pay your home first. It's really not that important. Like the other thing is, like, even though I report on a lot of this stuff, report on the latest graphics cards, I got a 3090 and I wasn't even that like, I was impressed, but there are other issues with it as well that you have to have when you have a 3090. Like, it's very hot as well, and if you want to use it for mining, it makes the room hot all the time. And then the other thing is, like, what kind of level of performance are you happy with? Like, do you really need that extra 20 or 30%? Like, if you're happy with, say, like a 3060 or a 3070, you're happy with that type of performance. If your previous card was super slow, and then you just upgrade it to a 3060, you'll really enjoy the 3060 and 3070, which is kind of what I've done. I went from a 1070 to a 3070, so almost 2 generations, and that was a really good upgrade, I found. And I'm enjoying playing a lot of my games. I went from a 970 to a 1070, and that was a good upgrade, but not as good of an upgrade as 1070 to 3070. So I think that's probably the biggest difference, like how big of your performance jump is, rather than, say, like just getting the top end 3090 card. Let's see. The cooling is shit on GDDR6X, room for improvement. So you know what? I think some cards, they have separate cooling for the memory and for the GPU die. So the heatsink will be attached and runs the separate heat pipes. I think so. I'm not 100% sure. And of course, some cards will have it all on the same heatsink. So it's almost as if, the temperatures on the memory can also affect the temperature on the GPU core as well, which is kind of dumb, especially when you have GDDR6X running so hot. So, and then there's really no way to know until somebody opens the card. So, and it's not something that most people are going to do. Look at a card, look at a video for a card, and have somebody open it up and look at all the details in that way. People are just going to be buying a card off the shelf, choosing which has better RGB lights or which design they look better, because most of these cards are going to be more or less the same in terms of performance anyways. That thing about the factory overclocks on all these cards is pretty much useless, I think, because it gets separated by the price anyways. So, your FTW3 or EVGA FTW3 is a little bit better than your base XC3 card. So, but then you have to pay for that in performance improvement. I think as long as the cooler is good enough, like, I think you could get away with just having the base card. But yeah, of course, the quality of the components is much better on that FTW3, I believe. Just in terms of like the materials on the cooling and everything, you're just going to get a better cooler on it. Confirmed SK, Nvidia only went with Samsung for GeForce, TSMC for Quadro, so that might be the case again. Not a bad to pick which node makes the most business sense. Not a bad idea to pick nodes on what makes business sense. Yeah, exactly right. So they're on both, and it could very well be that maybe this TSMC 5 nanometer or this information for that is actually for Hopper, although on this rumor thing, they already said that Hopper is on TSMC 5nm. Really feels like the rumors out there are for Nvidia going back to TSMC, which is really surprising to me, to be honest. I didn't realize they would leave Samsung that quickly. Gordon Lin says, you think the Steam Deck would have a clock boost when plugged in like the Switch when docked? Uh, that's really hard to say, and I would say, well, that it was in the specs, right? So in the specs, it had like 1 gigahertz to 1.6 gigahertz, and it didn't say anything about like a handheld or docked mode. So I'm led to believe that the handheld mode will be 1.6 gigahertz, and I don't see why it wouldn't, because this is a PC, and I think the Steam or Valve developers have decided, hey, we're going to let people do whatever they want. So if they want to crank this up to the maximum power consumption, then they can do it in either handheld or dock mode. So I don't think we're going to have a situation where you put in the dock and you get more performance. You will just get the maximum performance on either switch, on either the dock mode or the handheld mode. I hope that makes sense. Was hoping the Switch would have a third mode where you get a clock boost when plugged in, but not docked, so you can get high performance on the 720p screen while portable. Yeah, the thing is, like with Nintendo or other console manufacturers, most of the time they really want to limit you to the exact way that they want you to play. So that's probably not happening, although of course that would be nice if they did that. And maybe the only way to do it is if somebody hacked the system, because if they hacked it, they would be able to show like you're actually in docked mode when you actually plug it in. GDDR6X puts a lot of heat. Oh, sorry, let me go to W. Any leaked pricing for the 40 series yet? Well, the 40 series is so far away that you're not going to have any pricing. There is no possible way there'll be any pricing yet. I've even heard that, they don't even decide on the prices until maybe like 3 or 4 days out or a week out, or finalize the prices. There might be some rumors about pricing, but really, in terms of leak pricing, like if you just want me to have a total guess at this, like the 4090, the one that we got here, the AD102 will probably be like 1,999 MSRP. And the other thing is that with MSRPs, I don't really know if there's I don't really know if there's a point anymore to MSRPs. I guess really that's just for the manufacturer, because when it comes out to the street price, it doesn't even matter anymore, because what we have right now is we have miners, and miners take excess stock, and then they are able to control the supply and able to control the prices that way. So with the if they have too much supply in the market, they just turn around and go to the miners, hey, do you want these guys? Then they keep that stock off the market and then wait for the prices of those GPUs to come back up, or maintain those GPUs. And then if they don't have enough stock in retail, or if the miners have too much and they don't want them anymore, then they will start to sell some on the retail. But see how there's a careful balance of pricing now. And previously, when there were no miners, they couldn't do that. So now they can play the two sides of each other. But yeah, I don't think the MSRP, so W, I don't think the MSRP matters anymore. I think we're going to have the same situation. If mining continues, we'll have the same situation next year when the RTX 40 series comes out. And then you'll just have to pay like 1.5x or 2x your pricing, your MSRP pricing for your graphics card. Aussie Bogan Tech says, GDR6X puts a lot of heat out the back of the PCB, and thermal pads don't cut it. And half don't even have thermal pads. Exactly right. The design was atrocious for GDR6X this generation. It was a new tech. Obviously, these manufacturers had no idea what was going on. They probably didn't even have time to test it from the way it looks. I think one of the problems was they had too many cards as well, now that we think about it. Because they had too many cards, and then they had to rush their production. Then maybe they didn't even have time to test their cards. I remember going back to like last year, it seemed like they went very quickly from like announcing the thing and for these manufacturers to have like, I remember the blueprints came out like say June or July sometime, which meant that maybe the AIBs got it then, and then they leaked it, and then it was about 4 to 8 weeks before Jensen went and did his presentation in his kitchen, and so they really didn't have a lot of time to like go and test stuff. Because don't forget, you'd want to like make some of these cards first, test it, and then go into mass production, right? So, like 8 weeks, 12 weeks is really like tight. So obviously, maybe, yeah, they saw that the temperatures were like 95 degrees or whatever. Oh, look, it's within the micron spec. Okay, we're just going to go with it. Then they didn't realize that people were going to be cranking the overclocks up on these cards, cranking the memories on these cards for mining. And then, yeah, you'd get like way over 100 degrees on these GPUs and on the memory. But yeah, it was terrible. And one way around it is like the thermal pads. So they use shitty thermal pads to save a buck. And if they use proper thermal pads, which I do believe will happen next generation, I do believe that they won't save like $1 because it will cost them more in terms of people RMAing the cards. They're just going to stick in better quality thermal pads, and they can just buy them really cheaply from whoever makes these thermal pads. And yeah, I don't think, and even just having proper thermal pads is going to save a lot of problems for people. And I think they're going to, on some of these cards, they're going to design it properly so that it's going to be a little bit easier for people to change out the thermal pads as well. Because there are some cards, like for example, my palette card, you had to get so exact with the thermal pads, and they didn't have those thermal pads readily available because they were a weird height. They were like 0.75 millimeters. That's 0.75 millimeters? Or maybe 0.75 millimeters. So it was a really weird height that you couldn't buy. And I had to squish some pads. I had to squish some 1 millimeter pads down to 0.75 millimeters. So they're going to make everything very nice and even. Everybody can just go and fix their cards properly. So you don't get as many RMAs and as many problems. It's also a PR issue as well. W says, yeah, there is. I was able to get two 3090s and a 3080 Ti all for MSRP back May, June. Okay. Yeah, so it's just different in different parts of the world. The cars aren't really at MSRP where I am. I know in Australia, where I'm from, that the cars are a little bit cheaper than where I am now, which is Malaysia. So in Australia, I think the reason is some of these PC retailers refuse to take cars that are at market price or have to sell them at market price. They just, on principle, think it's kind of bad business to do that as well. And they want to sell it. They want to sell one card per household. They don't really want to sell it to. They don't want to sell a ton of cards to miners and leave people who really want a card, gamers, who also go and buy a lot of their other equipment as well. I think it's makes sense from a business perspective, because if they sell all these cards to a ton of miners, then they can't get rid of their other stock as well. They can't get rid of like their CPUs and motherboards and that sort of thing. So they have a strict one per household or one per address system. And so they are able to sell the cards for a little bit cheaper than the actual market price. So what I mean is like for say like the 6700 XT, I was paying like $1,000 US here in Malaysia. And then over in Australia, I was paying 1,000 Australian, and that translates to be about 700 US. So it was quite significantly cheaper to buy the card there than it was here. So yeah, the prices are really different everywhere. You may have places where they only sell at MSRP and you get lucky, but there are a lot of places or a lot of countries where it's not always the case. Like the retailers, they don't really care. They're looking to trade stock. So all they care is flipping and as fast as possible. They'll put all their units online and it's free for all. And luckily over here, there aren't as many scalpers as there are elsewhere. And so it's not too bad. Like if you put things at market prices, then the scalpers have less incentive to buy it as well because they don't control the supply. So if they bought all of these units, then the retailer turns around and can undercut the scalper. So it's not really worth it as much for the scalper anymore to buy at market prices. They want to be buying at like MSRPs or a price that people can't get. Turn the backplate into proper heatsink should be a good idea. Yeah, really. I mean, 100%. That should be a no-brainer. Like the piece of metal on there just doesn't feel like, on many of these cards, just doesn't feel like it dissipates the heat very well. Like it's some sort of crappy alloy that's just not good for transferring heat. Whereas maybe if they just put a little bit more metal in there, then it would be a better heatsink. But it isn't, and they should. I got my RX 6700 XT for $950 from PLE. Right, I got one from PC, or my brother got one from PC Case Gear for about that price. And there was one for like $879 that we picked up. So he got two cards. One was like $879 and one was like $1,000. So yeah, he got two cards there. All right, so it's probably time. I know there's 16 viewers there. There's a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining me today. Keep putting comments in the chat. But we have a lot more to discuss. But I'm going to take a break first because I've been going for a while now. Let me see. How long have I been going for? I've probably been going for about an hour. I want to take a break, go to the toilet. You guys make yourself a drink. I'll be back in 2 minutes. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we'll be right back. So make sure you stick around. Let me see if I can... Whoop. I'm gonna make sure I'm sitting on screen. Okay, okay, I think I'm more or less on the screen now. Okay, so I gotta tell you something funny that happened at the start of today's show. If you're just joining us now, is that I've been going for 2 hours, but I believe that the stream has only been going for 1 hour. So I started talking in the stream and I didn't press the go live button. So I was talking to myself for about an hour there until some people asked, hey, when is the stream starting? And I'm glad that they did that because if it wasn't for them, I would have just finished the entire show. And that I probably wouldn't have come back and done it again because it's strange to talk about things twice, back to back. You don't remember like if you left something out or whether you said something. It feels like you said something already, but you haven't. Yeah. So now we're finally moving on to like fresh stuff that I didn't actually talk about twice before. So that's fine. It's fine. I sometimes I do stupid, embarrassing stuff, and then you can all laugh at me, and I'm good with that. But yeah, so let's go quickly to this. I just wanted to mention it because, well, there really isn't that much to say about this, except I wanted to show you guys what the Intel naming scheme for the very, very new node is called. So I think this is the first time that they've introduced it. So they're introducing a new naming scheme for all of their processors. So previously they decided to call it under nanometer, but now that there's so much people talking about like the process nodes at Samsung and then the process nodes at TSMC, that it's all getting very confusing. And as you can see, like even with this chart here, this is 5 nanometers and 7 nanometers. It's kind of like all over the place. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when say Samsung 6 nanometer, which is this pink triangle here, 112.79 million transistors per millimeter square, and then you have say 6 nanometer TSMC is a different node density. Even like it jumps up to 5 nanometer here. It almost doubles the 6 nanometer or increases by like 60-70%. So it's super weird. Like from 6 nanometer to 5 nanometer, you get such a massive million transistors per millimeter square jump. And so I think they did the right thing to move to this naming convention, which removes the units. And it's almost kind of like what we're talking about with the memory bandwidth as well. How Dr. Ian Katras was saying, hey, instead of saying it's like 3200 megahertz or 3200 mega transfers per second, let's just call it like 3200 because that's an easier naming scheme for everybody. And so I mostly call it by that anyways, just to save some sort of explaining time. Most of these RAM kits are listed as that anyway. They're not really listed as 3200 megahertz. It's like DDR4-3200. And so that's kind of like how I just like to call them anyway. But so I think we know, most of us knew about like Intel 10, 7, there's a 4 and a 3. I think we knew that Intel was going to 3 and we didn't really know too much about it. It says here that this node will provide 18% performance per watt gain and it will feature a denser HP library. The company also promised increased EUV use, increased intrinsic drive current. I think the really interesting one is Intel 20A node, which will provide innovations beginning the first half of 2024. That's not really far away. That's like a couple of years away, 2.5 years away. The A stands for angstrom, a metric unit 0.1 of the size of nanometer. This node will introduce a new transistors architecture known as ribbon FET and power via interconnect innovation. Intel does not confirm which product will use the Intel 20A node. So Intel 7 nanometer, or Intel 7 as we know it now, is 2023 product. Whoops. So there's still another couple of nodes. It is going to be a while until we get anything 20A, but it is pretty exciting that this is effectively, say, 2. This is effectively like, say, 2 nanometer, right? Because it's 20A times 0.1 is 2. So it's going to be a while before we get this. Like Intel 4 and 3, we might get like, say, 2024, for example. So 20A is probably like a 2025 thing, realistically. It could be even further out than that. And I wouldn't be surprised because like, I mean, well, Intel's been on 14 nanometer for how long? So that's the joke that keeps on giving, I think. So I don't know when 20A will be. maybe like I don't know. It could be a very long time before we get that. But there's more stuff in that article, and I don't really know too much about it. We don't know too much about it because, well, there's really only that amount of information on there. This is interesting where it's building that up as a stack. But I mean, what can we really say about that? So we'll probably go on to the next article. So this is Amazon's New World beta. And I know a lot of people have been commenting on this. So if you have any comments of your own, make sure to put in the chat. And this is essentially Amazon's New World beta is bricking RTX 3090 graphics cards. Now, the thing is, people are arguing whether Amazon is to blame or whether it's the hardware is to blame. And the thing is, there's something wrong with the hardware. Let's put it that way. Like the cards should not be bricked by any type of software, whether you're running Windows or anything like that. So people who are blaming Amazon for doing this, or well, yes, they can share some of the blame, but they shouldn't have all of the blame, right? Nvidia definitely has most of the blame here, if not all of the blame. So there should be no way that you should be able to brick a car with software. That makes no sense. And even like, when they say, hey, do the BIOS with, like, if you want to upgrade the BIOS, you have to do it with caution or it's at your own risk because you can wreck your card. So they never have that warning with like whatever software that you're playing. This should just work with all software. I think that's the easiest way to explain it is like, playing a game is not like installing BIOS on your graphics card, where if you install the BIOS incorrectly, you may brick the graphics card. This just playing a game shouldn't do this. Now, the important thing I want to point out here was that it says here, Amazon Games released the following statement. Hundreds of thousands of people played in the New World closed beta yesterday, with millions of total hours played. We've received a few reports of players using high performance graphics cards experiencing hardware failure when playing New World. New World makes standard DirectX calls as provided by the Windows API. We have seen no indication of widespread issues with 3090s either in the beta or during our many months of alpha testing. So, I think there's two issues here with that. So one, they say that New World makes standard DirectX calls, which I believe there would be no reason why it wouldn't make non-standard DirectX calls. But there obviously is some sort of glitch there where it's asking for, and people have said, hey, I think Confirmed SK had a good he had a good comment here. It said New World menu would run thousands of FPS, and that's what was bricking the RTX 3090. So it's making some sort of call there where it can't stop the asking for the power, and then the extra power would increase the FPS because it's running at an unlimited frame rate. And because it's on the menu, it's very easy to run it at really, really high frame rates. So the first thing to do if you want to play this game would probably be to limit your frame rate, even at like 60 hertz, for example. Even if your monitor can do 144, I would just limit it to 60 because 144, not that many cards can even do 144 anyway, even the 3090. I haven't really seen how graphically intensive this game is, but there are games like Cyberpunk, you can't even run it at 144. So I would just lock it to 60 if you want to play this game. And I would use the Nvidia setup in your control panel, wherever that is. I don't know where that is anymore. Is it this one? No, it's not this one. But you all know the one. You all know the control panel in here. I don't know why I don't have it anymore. What's going on? Discord, Bluetooth, blah, blah, blah. maybe this one. Where's it gone? Here we go. So if you go into here, you can just limit your frame rate in here somewhere. Monitor tech. Preferred refresh rate. No, not there. So, oh, this is at 60 hertz. Well, yeah, you could probably lock it in here. Although sometimes I think maybe the game also overrides it as well. But definitely just put it in 60 hertz here as well. Yes, it's one extra step, but I think it's at least worth it to do. So make sure it's set in here. And it might be in here as well somewhere. But I haven't really looked that hard into it. And then, of course, lock it in your game as well if you can. Max frame rate. So you could lock your frame rate here. It's off for the time being, but I could lock it on and lock it to say 60, for example. But I'll leave it off for the time being. But yeah, you could do it that way. Now, the second part of this is we have seen no indication of widespread issues with 3090s. I mean, that's really hard for, I mean, yeah, they could just say whatever they wanted to there, I guess. The thing is that it's been reported by video cards. There have been many issues of this that people have been coming out to report on in forums, and we're not like, what is like a lot and what isn't a lot? Is it like 100 cards or 1,000 cards or 10,000 cards? So this is the kind of debatable thing. I think they obviously release statements like this to protect the company because they don't want to admit it until there are hard evidence or hard numbers on this. Unless they had to bring it to a court, for example, like a class action lawsuit by like X number of like 3090 owners that get bricked by this, and then they don't want to replace them, then there'll be a class action lawsuit. There was a class action lawsuit with the GTX 970, if you recall, about how that had only had 3.5 gigabytes of RAM. So if there's enough people that have problems with this and don't get refunded or RMA'd in a proper way, then there could be something that leads to a case for Nvidia to answer for. So of course they're going to make the statement that says, "Oh, look, there's only a couple of people that had an issue." It just seems like it's a lot more. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making such a big fuss about this. Even Son of a Tech, who I follow on YouTube, he made a video about it, and his card got bricked. And then somebody else that Buildzoid was talking about, he said one guy had 2 of his cards bricked. So there's something inside the game where it's making a call and increasing the frame rate and killing the card. Now, Buildzoid made a good video about this. I don't even know if I but I don't. You can go to Buildzoid's channel. Actually, hardcore overclocking. Where is it? Oh, this one. Okay, so he made a good video about this, and it is rambling about RTX 3090s getting bricked by Amazon. And I would say that he's the type of person you'd want to watch in terms of like what actually happened with your 3090. Although in this video he says it's mostly speculation on his part because he doesn't exactly know. He doesn't have a card available to him, but he's guessing that it's probably something to do with the overcurrent protection on this card. So it's bypassed that in some sort of way. Maybe it's drawing a ton of power through one area of the card, but it's not really getting picked up because it seems normal. So for example, because this card can do 480 watts, the Asus Strix can do 480 watts. Maybe that 480 watts is going to one part of the card, like say one VRM, for example, and then it's killing that, and then the whole card dies, for example. So, yeah. I think you guys are best to watch that. I didn't make a video on it because I was too busy with Steam Deck stuff. But and the other thing is there wasn't really a whole lot of information to go by. Like unless you there wasn't really that much information about this. But actually, hey, let me read this. This is interesting. Um, Original post continued. Yeah, and I'm kind of just like winging it. I haven't actually read some of these articles because I only decided to do this live stream last night. So I'm kind of like going on the fly here. But this is new information for me. It says here, Goats, good afternoon. So after hitting the play button for the New World beta, the game started to load, followed immediately by fan speeds increasing to 100%, FPS dropping to 0, and then my monitor's turning off and my video card is no longer detected. That's pretty much what BuildZoid said as well. So I reboot the PC and everything seemed to work fine. I even tried a few other games to make sure I had no problems. So I hit play on New World again, and same thing happened, but this time I heard a loud pop, and now my 3090 won't get past post on boot up. Something died in between those two. So the overcurrent protection died between the first part and the second part. So now there's no longer overcurrent protection there, and now it's able to, I guess, hurt other components on that second time. This is the second 3090 FTW3 Ultra directly from EVGA to die while playing or attempting to play New World. My gosh. My first one died during alpha, but I was able to play that for a week or so before that happened. Maybe BuildZoid is reading the same post that I'm reading now. But the exact same thing happened with that card. It just happened while I was actually in the game. And then he goes on to say something about a refund. But I think, yeah, you guys, if you're interested, go and check that BuildZoid video out. Confirmed SK says Nvidia approves all the AIB cards too, so they approved the design for EVGA. Yeah, but is it just the EVGA card that's the issue, or are there other cards that have the problem as well? That would be interesting if it was just the EVGA design. Okay, let's have a look at this article from Video Cards. This is Nvidia and AMD graphics card pricing entered a stagnation. This is super interesting. I think I've mostly given my thoughts on it because people asked me already. But I guess, for this section of the video, I may as well just go over what I mean. So as you can see here, the prices of Nvidia and AMD, maybe I can blow this up. That's a little bit bigger. The prices of Nvidia cards were really high in May. So the Nvidia cards, because of the improved hash rate on these Nvidia cards, were much better than the Radeon RX 6000 cards. So that's why it costs so much more to buy than a AMD card, because the AMD cards had the 256-bit memory bus, and it was really operating at about 60 megahash a second for those top of the line graphics cards. So the 6900 XT and the 6800 XT. Most people wanted the 3080 and 3090 because you were able to do 90 megahash a second and 120 megahash a second. So that's why it was priced higher. But they were still selling at above MSRP anyway, because if you couldn't buy the 3080, 3090, well, you would just get the next best thing or whatever was available in the market. You wouldn't really wait 2 or 3 weeks for that 3080 to drop, or miners wouldn't anyway. People would just buy whatever was on the market, because most of these cards were going for prices relative to the hash rate. Now, they've more or less hit a point where the cards prices have stopped dropping. And this is 150% of the prices now, of the MSRPs. So what is 150%? Well, that would be, say, for example, your 3080, for example. Although I think it would still be higher than this. So it's supposed to be $1,000, but if we go to StockX, right? Or we go to eBay, for example, I think it's more than this. So So it's about $1,500 for a RTX 3080. But if you do a 3060, for example, your 30s, well, actually that would still be double. I think the 3060 is still like $650 for this RTX 3060, which the price of it would probably be about $450 MSRP. So what's that? $450 times 1. Okay, so this is about 1.5 times. But yeah, even the base MSRP is like 329. So 329 would be 2x, for example. So cards' prices are still really high in general. It's between like 1.5x and 2x right now. But the reason why these prices aren't dropping anymore is because miners continue to buy these cards up. There's really no reason for a miner to buy a card, a 20 series card or a 10 series card, because one thing with these cards is that they have a limit on these cards in terms of the amount of RAM it needs. I can't remember exactly what the term was because I haven't followed it for about a month or so now. But or the DAG file size, right? For Ethereum and Ravencoin and all of these other things. So I think for DAG file sizes, you're already over the 4 GB limit for Ethereum, and then you have a couple of more years for 6 GB. So people don't want those 4 GB cards anymore. They want the 6 GB cards at the very least, or even 8 GB, because if you're a miner, you wouldn't really think about buying a card for like 1 year or maybe 1.5 years. You want to buy a card for a little bit longer than that, like say 4 or 5 years, switch that card out after about 5 years, move on to something new. But a lot of miners are still mining on these 1660 supers, 2060s. They just wouldn't be buying them as much. They'd be buying the 30 series cards. So this is why the prices haven't gone down, because before they get to MSRP, all of these miners are going to be taking the prices. All of these miners are going to be taking that extra stock. Now, the only way for this to get to MSRP would probably be like if the Bitcoin crashed even further to say like 2018 levels, or Ethereum crashes to 2018 levels, and we're really not there yet, because if we look at the Ethereum price, I'll switch this to, can we get this into a bigger chart? Maybe I'll go CoinDesk. Okay. This is 1 year. So, well, where are we? 2018. Okay, so we'd really need to get to say like 2019 levels of like about 400, even like $200. This $200 was really when the last time we saw MSRP card prices. So we're nowhere near there. So $2,000 is like a 10x from there. So of course, I don't think we're going to get MSRPs for these cards anytime soon. The miners are really looking like 4 or 5 years ahead. Like, I need a card that's going to be 4 or 5 years. I'm going to buy this 30 series card because I'm going to get 60 mega hash second on the 3070, or even the 3090. I'm going to get 120 mega hash second. So that's going to last me 4 or 5 years. If I just pick up this 1660 Super now, there's really no point. I'm going to get 1.5 years out of this, and I'm going to have to switch that card, and it's just too much extra work to do to set up your rigs. Don't forget, like when you do a rig, you have to think about like powers and stuff like that. Like your 1660 Super, you might be able to power that off 1,000 watts a power supply, but you wouldn't do that with a 3080 or a 3090 because you'd need 2 power supplies and different cables and all that sort of thing. So too messy. And if you're a miner, you can really just set up your rig and then just literally just leave it, and you don't have to do anything. You might have to look over the hash rate sometime, or the temperature sometime, but generally you could pretty much leave it, and it's really, really passive income. So that is why I think we're not really getting prices at MSRP, because the miners are taking all of these cards at 1.5x, and the distributors and the manufacturers, as I have said before, Now they have somebody to play off the other side. So in the past, in the past where we've had, like, say, GTX 900 cards, for example, when there were not as many miners before, um, if there was excess stock, then they would just put that onto the market and then the price would adjust itself. Sometimes you would get a card that was lower than MSRP. Now it's like, well, they have an option here. They don't have to send all of that stock to the market or retail. They just call up their best friend. Hey, you guys, you miners, do you guys want to buy these cards off me for like 1.5x, right? They are allowed to. Then they can like apportion a certain amount of cards to the miners, and then apportion a certain amount of cards for the retail markets, which ends up keeping the cards high. So if there's, say, like, I don't know, on eBay, for example, if there's were like 1,000 buyers last month, well, they might try to keep that at 1,000 buyers for next month. So then they will sell the excess cards off to miners at whatever price they need to sell, keep it off the market. I think with that way, they can control the prices, they can control the supply, and it's almost like their dream scenario where they can fix the price or manipulate what price they want to sell it at. And really, there's not that many distributors out there. There's not that many wholesalers out there, and not that many manufacturers. Maybe manufacturers, there's only like about 15 companies that are making these AIB cards, and they'll just trickle the stock out here and there as they please. They might do some deals behind the scenes with some miners. The wholesaler distributors, they're not getting that many cards. Supply is still very much constrained, and they can still manipulate it as they need to because they have that second option now with miners also wanting to buy cards. So they're using this situation as an advantage for themselves to keep the prices high. Anyway, this is just my rambling thoughts on the issue. So yeah, as long as that Ethereum price sticks around like 2,000 at the moment, I've seen it go just a little bit below 2,000, but yeah, it doesn't seem like we're going to get MSRPs. And then the other thing was that I saw a lot of videos, right, about hey, look, China's getting out of the mining market. Now we're going to get a flood of GPUs, and we haven't really seen that yet. I don't know if there's been a follow up to all of this, but it doesn't seem like we're getting that flood of GPUs. Like even if we go eBay, for example, and we type in, say, like a RTX 2060. Whoops. How much are these RTX 2060s? Even the pre-owned one is selling for $500, 400, 500, 485. Let's go to the what do you call it? The sold items. So sold items 2060, 500, 500, 500, 500, 500. It's still really expensive to buy a 2060 card, and it doesn't feel like the market is flooded with these cards. Though it could still be early. We could still be like maybe a couple of months away from getting a ton of these cards. And then the other thing is like, I think most of these mining companies, are they really going to sell these really old? If they were selling old cards, they'd be selling really old cards, like maybe like a 960, for example, which is totally dead to them in terms of mining. Because these mining companies, the other thing is that they get really, really cheap electricity. They're situated in places where they're basically paying nothing for the electricity. Maybe they're running it off on hydro or solar. They're not really paying that much for the electricity because of the cost to them. It's such a huge cost to them. So they can run their cards for a lot longer. So maybe their 1060s, they're still using those 1060s to mine something else. And then they'd really only be selling cards that really have no function for them. So like a 960 or a 480, really useless cards that probably are useless for gaming as well. Like, would you really buy a 760 or 960? I'd probably just spend that $100 or $150 on another card. Michael says local Toronto, Canada last gen GPU prices have reduced significantly in July, but only last gen stuff or low end current gen. The 5700 XT, yeah, last gen. That's still a pretty decent card. I'd be interested to find out, like, well, I guess how much they have dropped. The 3060 is still relatively new. It just came out, even though it's a mid-tier card. Lots of supply for the 3060. But again, that's really good news that these cards have been reduced in price. I guess my point is, like, are we seeing the flood of GPUs that are hopefully bringing these cards down a little bit? But with the 3060, in terms of, like, there's still lots of new cards out there in the market. And I'm wondering whether these distributors, retailers are really, like, constraining the supply, which will keep the prices high. So that's my question here. So it's a little bit of speculation there as well. Okay, so we've gone an hour. I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And then when we come back, we're going to do Steam Deck, okay? So I don't know how many questions I'm going to get for this because the chat has been a little bit slow. But please put your Steam Deck questions in the chat if you have any, because I've done quite a few videos on it now, so I've said pretty much all I have to say about it. If you guys still want to do Steam Deck stuff, we'll do Steam Deck stuff. If there's no questions at all about Steam Deck, I'll keep it really short, and then I'm going to just run into Animal Crossing, and then that's going to be the show. So we'll take a 2-minute break, and then I'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And Michael Chung, let's just get to his chat. He says, used to be 1,100 for a 5700 XT used, now going for 800, 900. So that's really good news. I think if it was me, I don't know about you guys, but how much is a 3070 going for? Because that has more or less the same amount of hash rate. So they both have about 60 mega hash a second. I think the 5700 XT, to get that, you have to, like, flash the BIOS or something like that, but you can still get it, which a lot of people do. So there is some incentive for miners there to go for that 5700 XT at about $900. I would say if it was me, I'd probably go for the 3070, just because it's new. But depends. Like if it's 3070 for like $1,000 versus a used 5700 XT for 900, I might go for the 3070 instead. But yeah, I think uh the 5700 XT. Yeah, the other thing was that some of those 5700 XTs you had to change the thermal pads. There's quite a few of them as well. Yeah, the AMD reference card needed their thermal pads changed. I think the MSI Evoke, I think Gamers Nexus did a lot of videos on the 5700 XT. There's like 3 or 4 cards that needed thermal pads changed even before you could, use it for gaming as well. Otherwise, the temperatures would be too high. But yeah, just something to keep in mind if you were actually getting a 5700 XT card. Michael says 3070 not possible to find unless it's scalper prices. Yeah, that's really expensive. Okay, so I mean, in that case, for miners would definitely go for that 5700 XT then, if the 3070 is $1,500. I just find like with used cards that you don't really know what happened to the card, so it's perfectly fine if you're buying a used card. Well, for me anyway, here's my philosophy. Okay, if you're buying a card like say under $300-400 a used card, that's fine. Like if you lose $300, it's not a big deal. I just find like if somebody used the card for a couple of years and then it's like $1,000, then I'd rather just pay for a new card for $1,000. But that's just me. I mean, sure, you can see it running first of all if you really want. Okay, so we're about an hour 52 in, and now I'm finally getting to Steam Deck. Now, I don't have any new news, although maybe we should do a check on this, whether there's any new news on the Steam Deck. There are a couple of things, like I saw the Fox say that it doesn't have variable refresh rate on this. What are my notifications? Okay, still this Jimmy Dore thing. I don't know if I want to, unless people want to know what happened with this Jimmy Dore thing. I got like a ton of likes, and I got blocked by Shu, but 217 likes, which is hardly, probably one of those tweets where this is probably the most number of likes that I got. I think I got 1,000 likes before one time, but yeah, 217 likes. I kind of like just threw a bomb in there, and then I think she blocked me. But she was the one talking about Jimmy Dore anyway, not me. So it was like, hey, you're the one that talked about this. But anyway, not really anything to do with gaming whatsoever. But what am I talking about? Oh, Steam Deck. I need to check Steam Deck news, right? Yeah, there was a couple of things like variable refresh rate. Somebody was talking about variable refresh rate. Thanks to Digital Foundry for confirming no variable refresh rate on Steam Deck. While I'm firmly in the more options are always better camp and thinking about variable refresh rate on portable handhelds since 2018, I've realized that VRR on a portable has some unseen negative side effects. I would say go and check that video out. I didn't know his name was Carrie Golem, or maybe this. I didn't know his name. Okay, well there you go. Go check Carrie's. But this is the Fox, or at least it has his icon for the Fox. So I better follow him. I think I'm subscribed to him as well. But yeah, go and check that out. I wasn't aware that VRR had issues on portables. I was like, hey, I read his YouTube title, and I was wondering, hey, what's up with VRR on handhelds? Because I thought VRR was a good thing, but maybe there's some issue with it on the Steam Deck or on portables. I don't know if there's any other news. All Steam Decks now expected to be available after Q2 2022. So I don't know if you guys saw in terms of when you went to reserve your Steam Deck, but there were some Steam Decks as late as Q3 2022 for the 512 gigabyte model. So that's how far off it is. And as I said before, with the RTX 4090 and the RX 7900 XT, a lot of these processors, they need at least a year or so um, to be manufactured or like designed. Well, they lock in the design like a year out. So in terms of getting extra stock for this, it's probably unlikely. Um, yeah, this is going to be one of the hardest things to get in your lifetime. Believe me. Like maybe, maybe people who actually got a unit will probably end up selling it anyways. I could see this going for like 4x or 5x because people have started selling this on eBay. Although eBay took some of these postings down for these items that were actually not available yet because the Steam Deck is not available. But yeah, they were already going for about 2x the price. So that's really low. Like, um, I would expect this to go for even more, just for the number of people who have interested in this. If you look at the IGN videos, they've had a lot of views. Like I think the Steam Deck one had over like 1 million views already, and there are only 50,000 units for the Steam Deck for the 512 gigabyte model in the US, anyways. That's not a whole lot. I mean, you know, PS5 in 6 months they sold about 10 million units, so 55,000 is really nothing. Now, I wouldn't expect them to sell even 1 million units. I mean, like, if they made 1 million units, they would sell 1 million units. But I wouldn't have expected Steam to sell or manufacture 1 million units. That'd be a really high number. But yeah, 55,000 is really too low. um, so this is going to be a problem to get a Steam Deck, to be honest. I don't think many people are going to be able to get one. I don't even think that they're going to release this in other regions. They may do like some sort of token release for some regions. Maybe they'll release like say 1,000 units in each country, for example, and just keep it to really niche tech people. But it's going to be really hard to get outside of the US and the UK and Europe. Now, Australia don't even have, it's not even available to be reserved in Australia. So Australia's going to have to sit this one out, unfortunately. Uh, there's a lot of other news topics that people have decided to make about the Steam Deck. Like, for example, PC Gamer says the Steam Deck looks like an ideal emulation device, according to. I don't know what it is between like PC gamers or console gamers, but it always seems like there's some sort of like uh, people are trying to get under people's skin a little bit with any kind of postings they make. Like even PC Gamer, a very reputable, well, at least you know technically should be reputable website, are trying to get under the skin of say Nintendo fans by saying, "Hey, we're just going to like emulate all your games or emulate all your Switch games." So yeah, I think a lot of people are really trying to start something on uh, on on social media. This one says Gabe Newell confirms IGN that he's played Dota 2 on the Steam Deck. I do immediately play Dota with each new version that I get, so I've probably been a little bit more laser focused on the usability of Dota. Um, it'll be really interesting to see how Dota runs. I would guess that you wouldn't be as quick with the trackpads. I don't know. Do people play trackpads on their laptops with Dota? I would say that it's probably a similar situation with trackpad, or even like say a Steam controller. Have you played Dota on a Steam controller? So I think it says here, I love Pierre Loop's smirk there. Haha. So maybe it's almost as if that he doesn't think that Dota's gonna play that great with the thumb pads. Like it will run fine. It just it's more difficult to use than say a mouse and keyboard. And I'm assuming like with the keyboard, you have a ton of shortcuts as well. So I wonder how they're going to be able to, or how people are going to be able to use that on a controller. I mean, of course, if we're talking like non-competitive play, that's completely different altogether. Like if you're just going to play Dota 2 for fun, then it's not really that big of a deal, because it's kind of like saying you play Halo Wars, for example, on a controller and it'll be fine. But I don't think a lot of people are going to take that option to play Dota 2 on the Steam Deck as much. I think people are just going to play it on their desktop computers with a keyboard and mouse. Confirmed SK. Oh, Michael, let me read this other tweet. Michael says social media is all about creating outrage for the clicks these days, so it isn't a surprise. Yeah, it really is. I made a comment about that yesterday on my Twitter. Like, everyone just knows how to manipulate these social media platforms now, including mainstream media. So, yeah, it's really just to create, outrage. Um, and I don't really like to get involved in that. I'm always shocked, like when people get incredibly upset and aggressive at something. I had somebody call me a fucking nitwit yesterday. I don't even know where that is anymore. And it was about something about Medicare for all. So, okay, it's a little bit political, but hey, I thought it was pretty funny. Where is that guy? I obviously didn't like it because, like his post. Oh, maybe it was something like this. Oh, yeah. Come on. Oh, yeah. This guy called me a nitwit. So I'm not sure if he was trying to um, piss me off or what. I don't know what his deal is, but um, people just get so aggressive these days on social media. It's like, hey man, are you here to like talk about Medicare for all, or you don't really care about Medicare for all and you just want to hate on Jimmy Dore, right? Um, but make sure to follow me on Twitter for crazy situations like this. But let's go back to Steam Deck. We're supposed to be talking about Steam. I shouldn't have included that because it's just kind of awkward for people who are watching this and then they have to go to my tweets for crap like that. But Steam Deck. Okay, so maybe I'll just start the chapter here for Steam Deck. So Steam Deck, I've done quite a few videos on Steam Deck now. And I've done a video on the RDNA GPU performance. I've done a video on the storage as well. Although technically that wasn't exactly the video that I wanted to make, but it was really just a response to how Review Tech USA was saying it wouldn't run games on this, which I don't think Steam or Valve would want to. I don't think Steam or Valve would want to bring out a system where you couldn't play most of their back catalog, or even games that are currently out at the moment. So I didn't see it that way, especially the fact that they had RDNA 2 and they had 88 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. This really seemed like a system that would be able to play most games that are out now. I don't know about going future, but at least out now, you'd be able to play most games, aside from, say, games like Cyberpunk 2077, where you really have to put up with some very limited settings, like 720p, 30 FPS, for example, on low. But don't forget, like Cyberpunk 2077 looks really good on low. So if you haven't seen, like seriously, I showed it in one of my Cyberpunk videos. Let me see where. Cyberpunk. This blew me away. Like, oh please, was it this one? Maybe it was this one. So this is low versus ultra, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, what's the difference between low versus ultra? Again, low versus ultra, you get almost everything. Now you don't get some of that shadowing or ambient occlusion under the car, and well, okay, we've got another scene here. We don't get some of that sunlight coming through on the ultra, which is surprising. So maybe there is a different time of day for this. But mostly everything looks pretty good on low. You may want to just play Cyberpunk 2077 on low. Look at this diner between low and ultra graphics. It's totally insane. Low looks pretty good. I don't think he's done anything weird here because I've tested this on my system and you can see a difference in, I guess, higher resolutions. That ultra looks a little bit better, but it's not that much better. And they do a lot here in low. And look, even in low, look how many other cars you get on low versus ultra. You get a couple more cars on low as well. And yeah, there's not. It's rather surprising. So I might just stop that video because it's hard to concentrate with that video on. We'll go back to this Steam Deck spinning around while I talk, unless you guys want to see something, or maybe like we'll go to this. Okay. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think this one looks pretty good. The other thing was I watched that Digital Foundry video. I think it was like an hour or so of them talking about the Steam Deck, and Richard Ledbetter was about to. He could actually tell what the FPS was just from a video within a video. Well, I'm not saying this is a video. I'm just saying like he can tell from the screen output there, which is really hard to tell. Like, I mean, obviously, it's not. It doesn't look like it's at 30 FPS. So maybe he's guessing here, like that is around 40, 45, or 60. But yeah, I guess he's the guru of that type of thing. Excuse me, I'm taking a drink. Fatemeh, I'm so glad you stuck around for this long, or maybe you just come back in now. As long as it has an upgradable M2, I don't see an issue. Okay, so thanks for the question, because I don't think it really does have upgradable M2. Let me show you in the tech specs. It says here all models use socketed 2230 M2 modules not intended for end user replacement. So it could very well be that this socket is very hard to get into, and so that's why they said we're not going to recommend that. Like, we're still going to say that it's using a 2230. The problem is that we don't want to get people's hopes up that you'll be able to change it easily, because most decks, most PC portals have been designed so that it's quite easy to, like, open the hatch or whatever that flap is called, and then you're able to easily insert your SSD. Even it's very easy on your regular PC to insert a SSD card. So I don't think it's going to be like that. It might be harder to get to. It might even be a case where you have to open it up in a variety of ways. Get to it, like maybe it's like in between the motherboard and the screen, for example. So you have to take more things apart. So it's more difficult to get into. I won't say it's impossible, because otherwise they wouldn't tell us that. Otherwise they would just say unable to be replaced, for example. The 2230 is the teeny ones, the SSD sizes. So it's this one here. This. Uh-oh. I wish they would just blow that up rather than jumping into. I don't know if you can see now. I can't improve the size of that, but you can see that the 2230 is that size there. um, confirmed SK. Let me go back to your message. You said it's one of those things people will have to see in person to understand, like side by side to a Nintendo Switch for image quality comparison. Uh, well, I think, yeah, it's going to be such a big difference in terms of image quality anyway, that you'll be able to see off, I guess, even whatever I just put up on, like, on the screen here. Like, there's just no way you're going to be able to play a game like that on the Switch. So I guess that's one of the reasons why they put the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order uh, as one of their games that they're showing off. So you can tell already that it's better than the Switch. And even there are some other games. Whoops, maybe in the hardware. Oh, here, look. Oh, Doom Eternal. Gonna look pretty bad on. Is Doom Eternal even out on Switch? I know there's a Doom game, but yeah, it's just gonna play so much better on a Steam Deck. So yeah, the Switch. I think everybody knows that the Steam Deck is much better than the Switch. But sure, I understand what you're saying. You're saying like, we if we put them side by side, then wow, people are really going to be able to tell the difference between the two for sure. I think most people already know that this is better already. Okay, so MFPV Detroit, best breakdown of the deck on YouTube. Great content. Can't wait for mine. Thank you so much for your kind comments. So yeah, my initial idea really was to make a GPU video. Where is the tech specs? On at least these three things, like the processor, which I've done, the GPU. I don't think there's that much to talk about the CPU because it's not actually being limited by the CPU anyways. Most of the games are going to be GPU limited. So that CPU is just going to be fine. Unless people are concerned about how it runs on Civilization or something like that. But in general, that processor, most people are concerned, like, how much power am I really getting on that processor? And if we look back at, say, Vega units versus a RDNA unit, I think we can get a rough comparison there. So that's what I did there. And I think you're going to get like maybe 25-30% performance improvement from that Vega teraflop unit. So expect, say, like the Ryzen 4800U, which has the Vega units. I think it's going to be around 25-30% performance improvement. Plus, of course, your RAM improvements on top of that as well. So then, of course, I made a video about the storage. Wasn't exactly the video I wanted to make because I did it kind of like I just winged it in that video. I saw Review Tech USA's video and I just wanted to make some comments about that. And in the end, it turned out to be that video about how Mark Cerny says hard drives are still fine. So if hard drives is fine, then eMMC is still fine because eMMC is much faster than hard drives. So hard drives are around about 100 megabytes per second for read speeds. At least I just tested yesterday on my computer. eMMC will be much faster than that. It's like flash memory. So you've seen with micro SD cards, they're about 120 megabytes per second, and you can get even faster ones. The SanDisk Extreme SSD cards are like, SanDisk Extreme SD cards are like 170 megabytes per second, and then the eMMC can be like, say, 400 megabytes per second, for example. And the funny thing is that it's kind of close to SATA SSD speeds because yesterday I tested out my SATA SSDs and they're about 500 megabytes per second. So still way faster than those regular hard disk drives of like about 100 megabytes per second. But yeah, it's like a 5x, right? Your SATA SSD is 5x. Your eMMC is like 4x. I think your eMMC is fine, which is why I made that video. The video that I kind of wanted to make for storage, which may or may not come, I'm often not sure until I make the video, and if it's actually good or not, then I will actually release it. But sometimes, yeah, I have things planned in my head, and then I start doing it, and then it's like, it doesn't really work, so I'm not going to actually do any more of that video. But the video that I kind of want to make is like, I want to just look at the loading speeds of the different storage, because we already know that it's going to run fine, right? I will look at the running speeds as well, I guess, for people who want to see like all of the frame rates across, say, like SD storage. Well, what am I talking about? Hard disk, and then micro SDs, and then eMMC. I don't have an eMMC, so we're just going to have to go with that SATA SSD, for example, and then the NVMe drive as well. And I don't know how that will play out. That means I have to install it on all those devices. So we'll see how that goes. I think it can be done on Steam. I've got Red Dead Redemption 2 on Epic, and that's going to be a little bit trickier to install it on all those. So if it doesn't work out, then I might not actually have a video. And then RAM, of course. I made that video about RAM. And I think, let me just quickly go back to that video if I still have it up. Okay. There's a slide here. So we talked about how DDR4, there was this video from Casual Game Test and Benchmark, and he tested out DDR4. Now, it's not the same as LPDDR5 or LPDDR4 even, but there is some proper scaling or memory scaling that he tested on DDR4. So it should behave similarly. I don't know if you're going to get exactly the same performance at these speeds with LPDDR5, but at least you'll get this similar type of scaling for LPDDR, which is the point I'm trying to make. Anyways, because the other thing is with these processors, they're running at 65 watts, and then your processor is running, the Steam Deck processor is running at 15. So you may not get as big of a performance bump, but you should still see similar scaling if you have your processor run at like 15 watts and you're testing all of these memory speeds out. So anyway, these are the memory speeds that he tested out. There's a graph here, and this is the graph that I want to point to. I could have scribbled on this, but I didn't. But as you can see, like if you're starting at 266, the performance continues to increase, even though the delta becomes less. So you can see it's kind of curving away. So you do get less performance as you improve the memory speed, but the frame rate is still increasing. So I would expect performance rates to still increase after 4133. And at 5500, which would be somewhere around here, I think you will still get a performance increase, especially with the fact that now you're using RDNA 2 units, compute units that are about 25% more performance. I think you will need to feed that compute unit with more information, which is why you need a faster speed, the 5500. So that was that video. So I've done the GPU and a bit of storage and the RAM. And really, I'm leaving the floor open to you guys. So if you guys have any questions about this, or maybe you've seen so many videos out there now that you already know everything about it, like everybody else does. There hasn't really been that much more information in the last few days. So if you guys have any comments on that, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, not a whole lot to talk about, not a whole lot of new stuff to talk about. I hope you guys are excited for this. I'm probably going to get one just because the demand is so high anyway that if I didn't like it, I will probably just go and sell it. So there's really no loss in terms of like just pre-ordering it, and then when it's available, you can just decide whether you want to pay the full amount anyway. I think to reserve it, it costs like about $5, and then when it's available, and I don't know when that is, it could be sometime this year, it could be next year for when the units are available, like in Q2 2022, for example. So it might just be a $5 reservation for a year. But again, like if you're curious, I think really there's no harm to put $5 down for this. And they said that's refundable anyway if you're really concerned about that $5. So I will put down that $5 to reserve one. I will probably get one. I still haven't decided whether I want to get the 64 gigabyte eMMC or the 512. So that is why I'm going to be testing the loading speeds of this, because I think that's really the final thing to test, and then work out, well, how close is that eMMC to the NVMe SSDs. And if you can't wait for my video, there's probably plenty of videos that test out hard drive performance versus SSD performance. And there was one that somebody brought up on my Twitter feed yesterday. I can get to it. Okay. This video, let me click through to this video. And this is why, like, sometimes there's even no point for me to make these videos, but it's just easy to talk about them. So this is Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, it takes about 2.5 minutes to load on the SSD and about 4 minutes to load on the hard drive. And I was saying, I think even in one of my videos, that it takes me like 10-15 minutes to get into the game. It's 4 minutes to go from this menu back here to get into the game, but there's like another 4 minutes just to load up the game as well. So that's like 8 minutes. There's a lot of fiddling around. It takes like 10 minutes to get into the game itself. We'll just skip ahead to when they're actually in the game. But as you can see, yeah, it takes about 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes 50 seconds to load on the hard drive. I'd be interested to find out what the frame rate is on that hard drive anyway. So I might, well, the thing with testing Microsoft Flight Simulator is that you have to download the entire game, which is terrible. It's like 150 gigabytes, 150 to 200 gigabytes. You download 100 gigabytes, you get into the game, and then it asks for another 50 gigabytes more. It's just shocking. I thought there was a fix to that. I don't know if they improved on that or not, but I recently downloaded on the SSD, and it was still at least 200 gigabytes, and that was about a month ago. MFPV Detroit says, I'm glad I waited an extra day. I was going to grab a GPT Win 3. Oh, and the next day deck was announced. Holy shit. Okay, well, I will say, you can get the GPT Win 3 right now. So do you know exactly when you're getting your Steam Deck? Is it like at the end of the year, Q4 2021, or you're going to have to wait till Q1 2022? Because that would still be 6 months that you would get with the GPT Win 3. Of course, in the long, in terms of long term, in the long term type of things, you're going to get way more use out of that Steam Deck because you've got the RDNA 2 units there. It's going to perform much better than that GPT Win 3. GPT Win 3 is not too bad. You can play like, say for example, the Steam catalog. You can probably play like 90% of the Steam catalog, and the Steam Deck will let you play like 95% of the Steam catalog. And that extra 5% is really stuff like, I don't know, yeah, like all the open world games that you probably can't play on, probably don't play well on the GPT Win 3. So I don't even know what this, I think it's something to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let's go back to, let me stop that. So for me, yeah, I haven't decided whether I'm going the 64 or the 512 or even the 256 really. I'm leaning towards the 512 just because it has the SSD in there. And the thing is, like, you can't really tell. One of the biggest concerns really is amount of heat on it, because with the GPT Win 2, I found it got very hot with the SSD and the processor all together. I didn't test it with like a heat gun or anything. I don't know what those thermometer things are called, but it was really too hot to hold after about 10-15 minutes. And that's going to be subjective for everyone. So imagine like you're holding your laptop. That's going to be how it feels like sometimes. So if you think that's kind of hot already, then it's going to be somewhat similar. But now, of course, your laptop needs to be like 4 watts, right? Or 4 to 15 watts. So you need to like switch that to 4 to 15 watts. Of course, it's going to have different heatsink and all that sort of thing. But that would kind of give you a feel for like how hot this thing is. And the thing is, like with the Switch Lite, that feels pretty good. And that's at like 10 watts. So I think like if you're playing something at 15, it's going to get a little bit more uncomfortable. I think it's most comfortable. This system will be quite comfortable at 4 to 7 watts. Plus, you add in that SSD, which is quite a little bit hot as well. And hopefully, they did say that there's going to be some, I guess, heat sink on there, and it's going to be a small area. So hopefully, it's not going to run as hot as say some of the other SSDs. Like, I think the GPD Win 2 had the 2242, so it was like this, and it was already quite hot. um, so yeah, so I would probably go the 512 first. I don't think the price is too bad. It's already way cheaper than the GPD Win 3, and the 64 is a really good deal. Like $399. There's just no way you're going to get any type of portable system for that price within the next year or so. I don't think GPD is going to come out with a system like they may do, but won't have as good specs. It won't be like RDNA 2 compute units. And if they did, they would have to take a huge price cut to do that, or they would have to take a huge revenue loss to do that. So I don't think they're going to do that. Plus, they run a lot of smaller units anyway. They'll try and innovate in other ways to get you to buy their product. So maybe they'll have a more interesting form factor that you like. Maybe you'll like that keyboard because it's not on the Steam Deck. So it'll be things like that that they will try and push away from this GPD Steam Deck. I don't think you're going to get a system at 64 gigabytes eMMC at $399 that has these specs. So that's why the 64 gigabytes is a good deal. As long as the loading times are fine, if they're like, say, 30 seconds to a minute for many games, I think that would be okay. I think I would be able to put up with that for most of my back catalog games, because that's what I put up with on the Lite anyway. So on the Lite, there are some games that have long loading times. Like I was playing WRC 9, it's at least a minute like between every menu, and it's annoying, but it is what it is. It's the Switch Lite. But the gameplay is fine. Like the frame rate and everything, that's perfectly fine. It just loads it up into the RAM. Um, so yeah, uh, I like all three. Like I don't mind the pricing on all three. Like this is an extra $120, and you get way more storage, and it's for $120. You get way more storage, and you get faster storage, and then again, I don't think this is too bad either. Like $120 for 256 gigabyte storage because you really need it. You really like. I think 256 is too small, but again, you're kind of moving up to this stage or this level just for that SSD speed, and then here you're moving it up for the storage. So I don't think it's too bad. Of course, if I was being hypercritical, of course I would say, hey, I would much rather if this was like $399, $499, $599. But I think I know why. It's like they just need that extra little bit of profit because they're running these pretty close to cost, at least for this $399 one. Maybe they're not going to even make that many of these $399 ones, and they're just going to mostly sell the $649. Because I think when I saw the stock numbers the other week, there were a lot more 512 gigabyte units than the 256, and they didn't really report on the stock numbers for the 64 gigabytes. Okay, so I'm wondering if people had questions for this. If they don't, it's fine. I mean, I've been talking about this for like 20 minutes anyway. Interesting that I don't even know, would this be a video or this is actually running on the Steam Deck? This running Control. But I think the OS looks pretty cool. I really like how it almost looks like a refined version of the Switch OS. And I think I mentioned a couple of times, one thing that you would be concerned about is something like, say, very small UI. So I won't say that again, but essentially, there will be things that you're going to have to fiddle around with if you're not happy with the UI size. Don't know if that's going to be able to be adjusted or not, but maybe somebody will make a mod for it. But initially, like if you're just going to be playing it stock, you could have to run with issues, things like design, UI stuff. Because a lot of this, if you're taking older games from your back catalog, they're not going to be designed well for the Steam Deck because the rest of your audience is basically playing off a big monitor or a big TV. So it's not going to look as nice. And so it might be a little bit hard for you guys to see icons and things like that. Confirmed SK the fact, Steam Deck runs Arch Linux is what sold it for me. Yeah, so for me, I'm not even going to bother like going to Windows with it. I'm just going to run it on Steam OS because you're going to get a lot of other benefits. Like it looks really nice on that Steam OS anyways. And if you were to like run it in Windows, you'd have to run it in big picture mode. It's going to not work as well. Most of your games will run in Steam OS just fine, or Linux. And then if you're on a portable, I don't know how often you're going to need Windows Windows programs anyways. Like how often are you going to want to do something in Windows? So I think you're going to be mostly concentrated on playing games, which is what this thing is supposed to do. So yeah, I wouldn't even bother like installing Windows on this. Maybe you could like run two, right? Like you could, if you get the 512 gigabyte, you could run a Windows install and then also a Linux install, and then you're able to select which one you want to go to. So you might want to do it that way. But for me, I'll probably most likely just leave it in Linux. MFPV Detroit, I really love the quality, look, and price point was perfect for performance. Yeah, exactly. This design has started to grow on me a lot. When I looked at it the first time, I thought, oh, wait, look, the controls are really high up. I'm not sure how that's going to work like when it's so high up. So maybe like you're holding it at the top. It's almost like if you've seen the Nintendo 2DS where some of the controls are very high up as well. And then there's a bottom screen. So I kind of liked my systems where it looked a little bit more even. So this has obviously been designed in terms of feel and how it plays, rather than what it looks like. Because if it was designed on what it looks like, all of these buttons would be like down in the middle of the Steam Deck. So it would look a little bit more symmetrical. But yeah, I don't really mind that the controls are up the top there. I don't mind the fact that the buttons are on the side there. I understand that for most people, this is going to be designed as like a first-person shooter style controls, which is why you've got symmetrical controls on both sides, and then the buttons are secondary. So I kind of get that. But the buttons shouldn't be too bad anyway. I think they'll be fine for, especially for me. Like I'm just going to be selfish here and say that I'll probably be mostly playing things like JRPGs, so it doesn't really matter like that the buttons are there. It really only matters if you're playing something like, say, a Devil May Cry, where you really care about the buttons and how fast you press them, or a Bayonetta, for example, and then you're going to get cramped because you're going to be pressing the button so close to the side. I don't think it matters for most other people. And it's funny that uh, this has the opposite buttons to the Nintendo. Nintendo, the B and A is swapped, and I believe the X and Y are swapped too. So a little bit confusing for people like me who are coming from the Switch. But I think this is the Xbox control scheme where they had the A at the bottom. But overall, yeah, to have a PC portable again, I wasn't sure I was going to buy this initially because I just don't have I really don't have the time to play this. But I think I'm going to get it anyway, just because it'll most likely be in heavy demand and should be able to be sold easily if I don't want it. Okay, so that's going to do it. I think we run 2.5 hours, and I might save Animal Crossing for next week. I'm going to delete that off the title. And we're probably going to leave it there. I'll let the stream run for another 5 minutes. If you guys have anything else you want to add, it was pretty fun to do this stream, even though it was a little bit annoying to begin with because I had that stuff up. And it was supposed to start at 9, not 10 o'clock. But yeah, I screwed up. But I hope you guys enjoyed that live stream. It was a little bit rambly because I had already talked about stuff twice, and I wasn't sure what I talked about and what I hadn't. And it was kind of, I was kind of winging it as well because I only decided to do this last night. So, yeah, it's easier if I have a little bit more stuff prepared. But it was nice to talk to everybody here again. MFPV Detroit, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time and effort you put in. Can't wait for the next video. Yeah, I think the next video will probably, well, actually it depends because like I still have to order a 256 gigabyte micro SD card to do some testing on what it's like to load games off an SD card. I don't have one available. Confirmed SK was an awesome stream. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I just, sometimes like when you do the thing, you can kind of feel like if it's going well or isn't. I really enjoyed the Steam Deck stream I did last week. Or 2 weeks ago, I should say. That was super fun and super excited with like all of the tech and stuff. So I wasn't sure how this one would go because it's been a while since I talked about the GPU side of things, anyways. So, yeah, and the other thing is like, it's also a little bit weird because, I think with a lot of other content creators, they focus on one thing. But I just happen to like all of these random things like Nintendo and GPUs and RTX 4090s and yeah. So it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, I think with streams, the key is like to really prepare for them well, because then once you go live, there's no second take. Oh, the other thing was, I also wanted to say, yeah, last week I didn't have a stream because sometimes I also feel like I want to do my video as well. So last week, I didn't do a stream because I figured most people knew everything about the Steam Deck. I just did 2 streams, 5 hours of Steam Deck anyway. So I kind of like run out of like new things to say. And so I decided to skip a week. I probably should have put something up there, but like I wasn't sure people were that interested in live streams anyway. But I really like them. But I had to skip that because I figured, okay, I'd rather spend, say, like that 5 hours preparing and doing the live stream into like doing a video. And I did that LPDDR5 video, and that took like 3 or 4 days to do because I needed a couple of days to like. I'm not like the biggest memory guy out there, right? Like, my areas is like I like GPUs and I like CPUs to a certain extent, and but I really like games most of all. and I like building PCs. And so to build PCs, you need to know like what's the latest stuff available. But memory like was always one of those things where it's like, hey, yeah, I will just get like, you know, DDR4 3200, that type of thing. So I really need to do like some research in that area to like actually make a video. But I'm pretty happy with the LPDDR5 video that I put out there. Um, Obviously, with that Ryzen 4800U laptop situation, there was no way I would be able to know, because unless I had laptops available on me to actually test out what the memory bandwidth is, like there's just no way I'm going to know. And then so many of those reviews, it was pretty unclear like what was going on. Like I think they probably could have done something like, hey, it's actually quad channel, but it reports it in dual channel. That would have just resolved a lot of the confusion, I think, especially like from these reviews, where you get slide decks like that AMD slide deck presentation, and they're literally saying quad channel, and then all of these reviews are saying dual channel. It's kind of confusing. But yeah, so I probably let the stream run on for long enough. It's another 2 hours and 40 minutes. I want to keep these down to 2 hours because nobody's going to click on these things. And then that kind of kills the channel a little bit. I don't mind so much for the live streams, but 2 hours 40 is like way too long to ramble on about stuff anyways. So yeah, again, trying to keep that length down. Okay. Confirmed SK says, yeah, finding memory specifications lately is pretty difficult, especially on laptops. Yeah, exactly. I felt the same thing. And we talked about it in the Discord as well. So if you guys haven't joined the Discord, make sure you join the Discord. There should be a link below. I'm not going to get into, well, if you just go on any of my review, into my descriptions, I'm sorry, you're going to have to search for it, but it should be somewhere there. There should be a Discord link somewhere in my latest videos anyways. But I think that's going to do it for this one. 2 hours 45, that's a long time. We'll save the Animal Crossing talk for next time. It was just going to be rambling about how much I love the game, and that might turn into a video, but no one is really clicking on my Nintendo videos, which I totally get because 95% of my videos are on PC stuff. Why would they click on Nintendo stuff? But sometimes like I just feel like making those Nintendo videos just for my own kind of interest, and I don't really mind too much. I just don't want it to like push people away. That's all. I hope I don't do that. I hope you guys, if you don't not interested in that Nintendo stuff, yeah, just you don't have to click it. It's totally fine. It's really just for me. Okay, so I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I think it's, well, I guess it's Wednesday for you guys over there. It's Thursday for me. So we have weekend on a Friday. Yeah. So I hope you guys have a good one for this week, and I'll see you guys again next time.